This would be asked to approve or comment on whatever revised market license regulations. I know this is the result of a huge amount of work by officers and others, together with the market traders who put a lot of work on this. And I suspect it's a good idea that we do review the market license regulations. But Alaric, over to you to introduce the item and make the recommendations.
Thank you, Chair. Indeed, it was extremely important that we reviewed our market licence regulations, and it's part of a process that's been going on for a very long time. I'm delighted to be bringing forward a document like this that supports the development of our markets. Our markets are extremely valuable assets to the area, and they are something which we have considerable plans, as have been presented before, to develop and move forward, and some of those developments have already been complemented by many and have been well received. And indeed it's important that we do that to support the economic viability of our markets. A huge amount of work has gone into revising the market regulations. Markets are an extremely difficult and increasingly so thing to manage. There are lots and lots of activities in relation to them, lots of very small things that could go wrong twice a week in most cases. So that's an enormous amount of small things that have to be agreed with a large number of people. And the traders themselves have spent and devoted many hours of their time to helping get these regulations right. We have had to add in a small section on the management of political activity within the markets, because this was an area where the regulations were unclear and needed revision in the same way as the others. Just for clarity's sake, I will emphasise that everything that we have been proposing here have been to try to facilitate the support for freedom of speech. We believe that the offering of sites throughout our towns, designated sites that have been proven by the borough over a considerable period of time to be the best places to give out information, is a beneficial move to supporting organisations in giving out information. Those sites that the borough has developed over time have been are to be made available under these regulations on all days except market days. I offer this clarification because it may not be completely obvious that even on market days we're offering the opportunity for any organisation that isn't trading, that wants to give out information, to apply for a ad hoc vendor's licence, or street trading licence rather, for any space that they want to apply for outside of the market, and that will be considered under the street trading licence regulations. However, in order to ensure that we are not in any way damaging the opportunity for free speech in our towns, while supporting the essential future development of our markets in the way that our traders want them to happen, and in the way that we need them to happen for economic viability, I am proposing a small change to the recommendation today to enable us to give further consideration to the number of concerns, thoughts and ideas around the political clause, so that we can ensure that we're providing absolutely the best possible solution. There are one or two clarifications I think that could benefit from being made, such as our definitions, and one or two small matters that might not be as addressed as fully as they possibly could be. So I'm proposing a change to the wording which suggests that we recommend approval of the market license regulations except for the provisions in 4.4. So the wording would be in the wording that we have before us, merely to substitute the word except for the word including, and to add a suitable additional sentence which says that we will bring forward a further considered report on the provisions for political parties and pressure groups as soon as we possibly can.
Okay.
Proposing that change.
Okay, so you're moving recommendations as you remember, yeah. Okay, brilliant. I know that we have Councillors Maureen Byrne and Councillor Cox who have indicated they wish to speak on this, but it would probably be appropriate to get a seconder for your proposal as you remember.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I'm happy to support a recommendation that says the regulations except the provisions being made for political parties. I'm very happy to support that, and I welcome the opportunity for, I presume, a further report to be put before us on this very particular aspect of the regulations. And I think it's extremely important that we consider this aspect, the political and pressure group aspect of this. I think it's very important we consider it in more detail, so I'm happy to support that proposed amendment to the recommendation.
Great. So we have a proposer and a seconder as amended, and I'm not sure which order you want to. Maureen, do you want to go first, or?
Thank you, Chair. Could you just advise me how long I've got, please, to speak? It is in my ward, the market.
I don't know if there are any rules. Technically it's 5 minutes, but...
Okay, thank you.
But it's nice to see you, nice to do it.
Thank you, Chair. What I'd like to ask initially is that just before I left home, I got a copy of a letter from Amnesty International that was sent to Councillor Pugh, which I think should be circulated to all Cabinet members. I think their description of what they think the implications are of his recommendation should be taken seriously, and I wholeheartedly support the content of that correspondence, but obviously you haven't seen it. I got it just after 2, I think, but I think Councillor Pugh's had it, so I think Cabinet members, before you vote on anything, that you take that into consideration as well. Anyway, I am digressing slightly, but I think that letter's important. Colleagues, I'm pleased that Councillor Pugh is delighted. I can tell you that the traders that we've spoken to on Haverhill Market are not so delighted, and I'll go into that later on. In conflating the necessary update to the market regulations with an attempt to revise provision for community groups wishing to complement the marketing offering, the proposal risks undermining the primary focus of the review and exposes the entire revision of the regulations to objections by community groups who might otherwise support the primary goals. The contention in paragraph 4.7, colleagues, that our market should primarily be a concourse for buyers and sellers and not for those wishing to promote political views or ideas is misleading, insofar as it admits recognition of the secondary nature of information advice services and the potential for increased footfall. There is no evidence of support for the requirement to restrict the activities of political or pressure groups amongst the existing traders. Such anecdotal evidence as does exist supports the argument for increased footfall and diversity in the offering. Whilst a small minority of traders may have concerns in other markets, the support in Haverhill Market with the benefit of some years of Labour Town councillors offering a political stall, it substantially contributes to the unique character of that market. All stalls provide a service, and providing that service is not incompatible with the ethos and principles of the council, the diversity of services and goods contributes to a vibrant market experience. During recent years, with a regular political party presence, Haverhill has seen an increasing percentage of available stalls, let substantially higher than Bury St Edmunds, and has attracted new traders. The business plan recognises the unique nature of each market, and regulation should reflect that ununiqueness appropriate to each location. The regulations in the proposed form risk excluding charitable groups, religious groups, public service groups, and even the council itself. Any revisions to the regulation needs to recognise the intrinsic value of information, advice, services, and to appreciate that such services may have a political element. The existing discretion exercised by market superintendents has served us well and is a sensible approach to ensuring that decisions reflect appropriate local demands. I'd like just to say to Councillor Pugh that you've made allegations that complaints have been received from traders. Before a decision is made, I would formally request disclosure of full details of such claims, what the complaints are and from where. Haverhill traders have been approached on 3 different occasions by 3 different individuals on their views on the political group stall issues. Councillor Pugh, not one complaint, in fact it was suggested we increase the footfall. We need a further explanation and details where you quote that experience has identified alternative days and sites is good for dissemination of information. Your recommendation is clearly a stronghold on democracy and freedom of speech, and I believe that groups other than those that sell food and likewise are being victimised for supporting their own groups. And again, I have major concerns when Councillor Pugh would like to dictate when our communication and what location these meetings have to take place. He knows full well that most residents use the market on a Saturday and Friday. If you want to plonk us on the market square on a Monday with a stall, for one thing it's unlikely we'll be able to get anyone to supervise the stall, and the footfall would be virtually nil. I would suggest that your recommendations to Cabinet are a deliberate attempt to prevent all and any group having access to their residents and electorate. Thank you.
Maureen, thank you for that. I mean, I think, I'm sure Eric will be able to respond to that in many ways, but I would suspect you'd welcome his amendment to this to ensure that, firstly, the market regulations for traders, etc., are updated to do what the intention behind this is, to improve and help the markets in both Haverhill and Bury St Edmunds to prosper. I'm delighted to hear, and certainly that's my impression, that the market in Haverhill is continuing to do well and will continue to do so. And I think that's the same in Bury St Edmunds as far as I can make out. And I think the fact that Alaric did start off by saying that he in no way was he wishing to in any way do anything but facilitate freedom of speech, and that he is removing that aspect of it from these recommendations so that you and others can make sure we get the best way looking forward, not just for various political parties, but also for religious and other pressure groups who might want to there. So I think that he is responding to a variety of points made, primarily by political parties, I have to say, on this, and therefore is suggesting that we take some more time on that particular aspect to look at it. So that seems to be very sensible, and you will have the opportunity to make an input to all of that. So in a sense, I would strongly recommend that if we do move ahead with this as proposed in second, we do pursue that amendment which I hope will be of interest to you. Perhaps I could also bring Gordon Cox in to make some comments. I know you must go back on that.
Just want to come back on what you're saying currently, if I may.
By all means.
Thank you, Chair. I've also spoken, or a Federation representative has telephoned me and said that the long-term traders are very disturbed that they were not aware that the market regulations were up for discussion, and I take it that Councillor Pugh has said that there's been a lot of work done, and I'm sure there has, but I'm talking about Haverhill, and expressed deep regret at the SEBC management for not consulting them not only on the political stalls aspect, but the entire document in case they are affected. And some of the same schools in Haverhill operate in Bury and they have not been consulted. So I think it's important when you look at the big picture.
Okay, Maureen, I hear that, and I'm sure that not only Alaric but also Mark Walsh, who's done a huge amount of work to do a lot of consultation here, will address those points, hopefully to your satisfaction. And I also think that Alaric can share with us the contents of that Amnesty International that you referred to, which I'm again assuming refers to the political part as opposed to market part, but I don't know, and I'm sure Alaric can make sure that everybody's aware of that before we go forward. Okay, can I, in the meantime, actually, Gordon, did you want to comment, or are they along similar lines?
Yeah. The bylaws referred to in this report are invalid. They are dated 1968 and relate to Bury St Edmunds only. The district of St Edmunds Bury Borough Council was formed on 1st April in 1974. New bylaws have to be created and be given the approval of St Edmunds Bury Borough Council. Moving on, the Borough Council as a public authority cannot impose restrictions which contravene the Human Rights Act, Articles 10, 11 and 14. Part of Article 10 refers to freedom of expression and states this right shall include freedom to hold opinion and to perceive, receive and impart information and ideas without interference by public authority. Article 11, freedom of assembly. Everyone has the right to freedom of assembly and to freedom of association with others. No restrictions shall be placed on the exercise of these rights, other than which is prescribed by law and are necessary in a democratic society in interest of national security or public safety. Article 14, discrimination. The enjoyment of the rights and freedoms set forth in this convention shall be secured without discrimination on grounds, any grounds such as sex, race, colour, language, religion, political or other opinion, national or social origin, association with national minority, property, birth or other status. Also to add that a product is anything that can be offered to a market that might satisfy a want or a need. A product can be classified as tangible or intangible. A tangible product is a physical object that can be perceived by touch, such as a building, vehicle, gadget or clothing, etc. An intangible product is a product that can only be perceived indirectly, such as an insurance policy. I would claim that selling a membership to a political party is an intangible product, as is selling a membership to a motoring organisation. And as such, any organisation is lawfully entitled to take their product to market on market days and on any other occasions without restrictions other than those imposed on other market traders. Otherwise it becomes discriminatory. We can hear roll up, £1 for a nice pair of juicy melons. And we are also entitled to hear roll up, get your UKIP membership here. Membership of an organisation is a saleable product. Just briefly on one aspect of market regulations, how on earth can a dead market trader be personally responsible for the transfer of their licence as indicated at 4.13 and 4.14? In conclusion, recommendation 1.2 of this report should be withdrawn and 2 working parties should be set up to produce a set of market regulations, and the other parties should be working parties should look at creating a new set of market bylaws for approval by Cabinet and the Council. Just also on the subject of bylaws, I was involved with reviewing the Parks and Open Spaces bylaws in 2010, but as of yet, nothing has come through to Cabinet or from full council. So I would like this matter investigated also, please, with a view of moving it to approval.
Okay, Gordon, we'll welcome back from your holiday. It sounds like you spent a lot of it either in the library or a legal course, but nevertheless, very good to hear you. And I would have thought, actually, given the arguments you just put forward, is why I would have thought you'd be very supportive of the amendment made by Councillor Pugh, that the political free speech things which he was trying to encourage in the initial paper should be looked at in light of the various comments you make, separately from the trading aspects for the markets, which a huge amount of work's gone in. I think I should also, this is before referring you to Alaric and or Mark Walsh on the points that already made about consultation with the market traders. My understanding was very extensive, but obviously I haven't been involved in that as Mark or his team or indeed as Alaric, but perhaps I could at this stage hand over to, I beg your pardon, can I, before that, Robert Everett has also indicated he wishes to speak on this, as does Anne Gallagher. So Robert, over to you, nice to see you. Mr. Mayor, sorry.
Thank you very much indeed. Well, I, in a former life some months ago, was privileged to have markets in my portfolio, and so I know very well the detailed discussions that we've had with both Bury St Edmunds market stall holders and Haverhill market stall holders that came from Haverhill and sat in the meetings when they were invited, when we started discussing the changes to our market stall regulations. And so I'm going to say, Maureen, I'm disappointed to hear you say that on the basis that I sat with, on numerous occasions, your market stall fruit and veg man, whilst we went through every single clause of this old market stall regulations and came up with what we have in front of us now, which is the new market stall regulations. So to say that they have not been consulted, I'm sad to say, is not altogether the right thing to say, because I know for a fact, as I was sitting there with them, he didn't, or they didn't, on every instance, come to all the meetings, although they were invited to. So I'm not sure where you got your information from, but I can promise you, from a personal perspective, as I sat on every single meeting that people started to guess yet, Haverhill were invited, and on occasions they came up. So I just wanted to make that clear. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Robert. And I know that how keen you are on working with the various markets, both in your previous portfolio and indeed as mayor, which is good. Alaric, you might have to bear with me because there are 2 or 3 or 4 other people who wish to speak, and it probably is best to leave you to answer any questions that come up. But first, I have Anne.
Thank you, Chairman. My question before I heard what Councillor Byrne had to say was to ask the portfolio holder about the consultation in Haverhill, because I was very keen to understand about the consultation with market traders, who'd been consulted, when, etc. And also, were there anybody else consulted? And there seems to be a complete disparity of information between what we've just heard and what Councillor Byrne said earlier. So I'd even more now welcome clarification of the consultation process, particularly that took place in Haverhill.
Thanks, Anne. I'm sure that will be getting that. But if I could move to Sarah on the right.
Thank you, Chairman. Just to say that it's extraordinary listening to Councillor Byrne, because her lack of history and knowledge of the consultation that has gone on with the market traders is quite astounding. Previous to your election, Councillor Byrne, I chaired a meeting for a long time for market traders. It took a great deal of persuasion to get them to come and engage with us so that we could find out their opinions. Nobody from Haverhill had come for a long time, but finally one trader did come, which we were absolutely delighted about. And this consultation has gone on since before you were elected to this council, Councillor Byrne. So for you to sit there and say there has been no consultation is absolutely, completely wrong.
Thank you, Sarah. I have to say, Maureen, that's always my recollection, and I've myself
I'd like to
been
come
for
back,
a long
please.
time. But hold on a second. Perhaps I'm doing my best to give you every opportunity, so perhaps we'll keep it that way. Dave Ray.
Thank you, John. Well, bearing in mind what we're being asked to do, as I understand it, is to approve these regulations with the exception of section 4.4, which will receive further consideration. I've got a couple of areas where I'd just like a little bit of clarification, probably for my own ignorance. The first is on page 41 at 3.1 at the top, which covers basically the opening hours of the market. And as I understand it, the market hours are 6 o'clock in the morning till 6 o'clock at night, by which time the market is to be vacated by the traders. And traders are required to trade between 9 and 4 normally, except for just before Christmas, when it's 9 till 4:30. So presumably they can continue to trade normally after 4 o'clock, provided they clear the area by 6 o'clock. And as my observation, and I don't frequently go to Haverhill Market, but certainly my observation at Bury Market is that traders continue trading after 4 o'clock. Some of them, however, particularly on inclement days, will cease trading earlier. This seems to preclude that. So I just ask that, although these are regulations, there's some flexibility given to the market supervisor to allow stores to close early if that's appropriate in the conditions. My second concern is on page 60, to paragraph 13.11. Which states all council business where it makes use of food establishments, buffets and concessions at West Suffolk events should have a national food hygiene rating of at least 3 or preferably higher. And I'm not quite sure how that's relevant to market regulation. So I'm happy to support these regulations, but I'd just like a little bit of clarity on those 2 points, please.
Thank you very much, Dave, and hopefully, Emmerich, Mark, you've got those noted down. I also have Sarah Stanley.
Thank you, Chairman. Really just to say that we seem to have moved on to debating something that we've said that we'll defer, and as I missed the point, but I agree with the points made that we do need further debate and discussion and clarity around these issues, and so I'm going to support the portfolio holder in deferring that particular part. But what I want to say is that I don't want that to distract from the excellent work that seems to be from officers and stakeholder consultation seems to have taken place around the rest of the regulations. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Sarah. I also have Terry Comment.
Yeah, so thanks, John. This bit of a consultation with market stallholders as a genre, they really talk to each other. You know, and I go back now to a report that my daughter did when she was doing her A-levels, Rebecca Hoppensberger, for John Knight, the provisions market. It was a very comprehensive report. I believe this is the type of thing that's followed on for, when Gordon was saying about, we haven't done that. That heck of a lot has been done. Working with the provisions market, we've realised how important they are, both to Haverhill and to Bury. And I've seen that report, what Becky did years ago, and the amount of, consultation that went on, the amount of people they spoke to, how everyone gets involved with each other, a bit like taxi drivers who stand at a rank and talk to each other at the time. They talk to each other. They are the type of people who do. So if you've got representation, I can be assured confidently that you've got some damn good representation because they do talk to each other. They don't stand alone when they go in and they speak up for each other. So I've got full confidence in that, going back 70 years. Thank you. Cheers.
Great, thanks, Terry. And thank you for all the contributions. We're slightly going around the second time. I know this isn't necessarily in the rules, but obviously this is obviously important to people. I have Robert, I think Maureen said she wants to talk about this as well. So Robert.
Thank you, John. I've just wanted to pick up on what Councillor Ray was saying regarding to the opening times. The opening times are, as you rightly pointed out, from 6 till 4, or rather from 9 to 4 opening time. But through negotiation and necessity, sometimes the market stallholders on the fruit and veg stallholders arrive earlier than the 6 o'clock start time, on the basis they have an awful lot to do and they can't fit it in between 6 and 9, so they will get there earlier. It's been agreed by them and us to make sure that happens. And with regards to the 4 o'clock finish time, they really shouldn't be breaking down before 4 o'clock unless they've been told to by the market's manager. And they will only do that in case of inclement weather. Because obviously we have a finite amount of time to actually clean up the markets. And so the waste services are standing by at 4 o'clock. Quite often what happens is that the market stallholders, if they are, while breaking down, will carry on selling their wares past the 4 o'clock deadline on the basis that they're clearing their stalls down as they do that. So the deadline at 6 o'clock will remain, and they will have to be cleared the site by then, and our waste services go in to actually then cleanse the streets. That's why that time scale is put in place. With regards to the food hygiene, in negotiation and in more detailed negotiation, every single point has gone through with the market stallholders from the very start of this report to regulations to the end. It was decided that the hygiene rating should be included within that regulations on the basis of making sure that the general public are kept safe, and that is the very least of the 3 that they should have, and hopefully they'll aspire to a 5. Now, until these regulations come into play, and they haven't done yet, which is why you don't see those regulations, or rather the hygiene science in place yet, on the basis that it's not being accepted. So we are doing our very best, and as our market stallholders, to make sure our markets are safe and secure and are serving obviously nutritious and safe food.
Great, thank you, Robert. And that's actually extremely helpful. I suspect this underlines your experience with market trades, both Hayward and various levels. But I also have, sorry, Harry, I'm hoping that you, Mark, can wait to get as many points and comments as we have. Maureen.
Thank you very much. Yes, I'd like to answer Sarah's comments. I am very aware that traders have been in consultation with the borough, particularly on the master plan and as a result of Hall. However, what I reported to you was that the market traders themselves are saying they have not been consulted. And the Federation rep that telephoned me said there's been no consultation for 6 months, and the issue around political stalls has never ever been raised in any consultation.
Okay, Maureen, I have.
I can answer.
We don't want. I mean, to some extent, we can debate this for as long as you like, but I think there hasn't been an amendment made so that all these various points on political and pressure groups and things like that can be looked at in detail, taking all the comments made by you and indeed by others, and including the Amnesty International, unless that relates to the market trading as opposed to any political or pressure group points. But nevertheless, I have Sarah indicated she wants to speak, Robert again, and fairly shortly after that I might get Eric and Mark to answer many of the questions that have been brought up, which would be helpful for all of us, if that's all right. And Dave, I beg your pardon, I'm not sure which order it's been. Everybody's very anxious to speak.
John, just to come back on the point that I made about 13.1. I'm very happy that the traders' stalls selling food should have the appropriate hygiene rating. All I'm, if you like, arguing about there is the wording of that. It doesn't really make it clear. It says all council business.
Exactly.
So, I mean, why not say all food stalls operating in our market must have a national food hygiene rating of at least 3, or preferably higher. And then it's absolutely quite crystal clear, plain English.
Dave, I think there is some nodding from Mark and Alric on that, so I think it clarifies things in that context and would be extremely helpful. Can I go back? I'm sorry, I lost it with that. I'll go back to Sarah and Robert.
Just going back, John, really consultation, when I chaired the meeting, and then actually market traders chairing the meeting, prior to Robert taking in the portfolio, it really was not about consultation. It was very much about discussion and collaboration, and what was going to be the best possible way forward for the economic viability of our markets. and to that end also the town centres. So it's incredibly disappointing to me to see councillors hijacking this as a political issue rather than really concentrating on the viability of the markets and the viability of our town centres, which is what is absolutely crucial to the economic development and the economic development and prosperity of our town centres, and that to me is what councillors should be concentrating on.
Thank you for that, Sarah. I think, again, I would say that the amendment is designed to do precisely that, so to give those people who wish to get involved in the political aspects of freedom of speech, etc., do not get in the way of doing things that will help improve the market, which is the primary purpose of this paper. So I think that is what Alaric is trying to achieve, as I understand it. Robert, and I think we might have to go to Alaric and Mark at this stage.
Yeah, ability to come back to some Maureen has made mention of. Maureen, all I can say to you is that if whoever that person is that's been informing you of what goes on or doesn't go on at those meetings, I'm afraid it is somewhat missing the point, because I can promise you there are 3 members of the Market Stallholders Federation that come to those meetings. They are representatives of the market stallholders, both Bury and Haverhill. Sadly, the Haverhill representative doesn't come along, I would say, very often, although they're invited. And with regards to the comments you made about exactly what he told you, I'm at a loss to know why he would say that when I've sat there with 3 representatives of the Market Stall Traders Federation, and one of which is now on the board of a very organisation, representing the markets across the country. And I would just mention that Bury Snedden's and our markets, both including Haverhill and Bury Snedden's, are held up as best practice. So I'm at a loss, I really am. I've spent many happy hours discussing all sorts of things with those 4 gentlemen over a period of about 2.5 years to get to where we are now, and we are all working as a team. Long gone are the days where councils told the market stallholders what happened and what didn't happen. This is definitely a partnership. We all agreed that this was the best way forward, and from that, this document that sits before you is the final document. So I think you need to go back to your gentleman or lady, whoever they may be, and just confirm what he's saying is accurate. Because I'm sorry, Maureen, you are wrong.
Okay, right. Now, Alaric and Mark, if needs be, perhaps you could try and start, if you could, answering the main points that you raised, because I think we do have to move forward on those at some stage. We've broken every kind of rule, but I was keen that we should have the opportunity to have a say on this. Alaric or Mark, as you suggest.
And what hopefully mine just can be summing up, Chair. I would like Mark to answer the couple of technical queries on their first. I think they can be more or less covered, but can I just get that confirmed by our senior officer?
Thanks for that. I mean, just to cover a couple of points that have been made, this is a process that has gone on for an enormous amount of time. It's involved several different groups of portfolio holders and councillors. It's involved several different groups of officers as well. Engaging on some of these issues is difficult, because obviously the traders themselves come at these discussions from different perspectives. And as I think it's already been mentioned, we have definitely consulted and engaged with the traders, but sometimes their level of involvement has been variable as well. Although I must say, we've very much appreciated the involvement that they've had and the fact that they've given up a lot of their own time in order to work with us and develop these regulations together. I think in terms of addressing Dave's points, yeah, absolutely. The time issue is one that was an issue for us from a markets operations point of view, and it's an issue for a lot of the traders as well. They don't like to see stalls breaking down early and going, because that has an impact on the market. From our point of view, that period of time when the market starts to break down, our cleansing operations start to get in there, you've got members of the public walking through, that's a kind of difficult period really in terms of managing the markets. So we're looking to try and get a bit more certainty around the timing of all of that. But notwithstanding that, obviously there is a degree of common sense that's applied mainly around the kind of weather conditions of things, as Councillor Everett has mentioned. In terms of your comment around the food hygiene wording in there, I agree with what you're saying, I think. The wording's been provided by colleagues in environmental health, so I will go back and I will check that in terms of what you're suggesting there. But I understand where you're coming from.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much. So in summary, I must begin by repeating the fact that has been said already, but it really does bear repeating that an enormous amount of work has already gone into all aspects of these regulations. But I am proposing that we look again at a small part of it in even further detail in order to ensure that we are not falling foul of any discrimination or in any way restricting free speech, as long as it's not to the detriment of our plans to develop our markets. Maureen, with regard to the Amnesty International letter first, I have seen it. I'm very happy to reply to it and will be doing so. It does unfortunately contain some misunderstandings, which I will address and clarify. It's why I made the opening remarks that I did, attempting to clarify the detail of just how everybody could be accommodated under the new situation. And I think everybody can be, but we will look at whether there is more that we should be doing.
Just on that point, I mean, because Maureen must have all covered in the dispute where the Amnesty exactly, just asking generally if that was referring to actually market trading, or it's referring to political oppression, freedom of speech, etc., which, as I understand it, you actually have seconded your amendment and that be looked at separately.
Exactly.
From the main thing. So is that the, or are they talking about?
No, it does focus entirely on the political clause, and is indeed a very good, rational, and well-phrased letter, apart from the fact that it has not quite grasped the detail of what we're proposing. And if that isn't clear, that's a very good reason for deferring that bit of the report. So I'm happy for people to see it and for it to be circulated widely, and I will circulate my reply to my colleagues as well. But hopefully that can be covered off quite easily. In terms of the other questions, I believe you've had answers to the widespread consultation that has taken place. On the I don't know how many times I can attempt to reassure people that it is that this has been a detailed attempt to address the continuing provision of free speech within our towns, and that is how we will work on this next bit of the report. We may not all end up agreeing on the precise detail of the solutions, but I want to ensure that all the points, the concerns that you have raised, as others have raised similar concerns, not an enormous number of people, but others have raised those. It is worth trying to be absolutely sure that all those concerns are covered on. One thing where we might agree, and a point that I do take, which plays to something that I've always felt about all the important places we have in West Suffolk, is that they are all unique in themselves. They are all different, and just as we aim to treat all of our car parking situations, all of our services in a unique way appropriate to where they are. I think I would hope that this next bit of the report addresses the uniqueness of Hayley's requirements compared to precedents in the solution. So we'll very much take that on board. Councillor Cox, the first point I would make is that we are not aiming to restrict freedom of speech in any way, merely to move some of the opportunities to exercise that. Your reference to the bylaws, I think is a little confusing because we have ourselves explained that the existing bylaws, which were heavily restrictive, do not seem to be legally enforceable these days, hence even further the need for new regulations across the board. But we will absolutely check that we are not being in any way discriminatory in what we propose. We will go through that with the legal to the code, I'm sure. So this deferral does give us the opportunity to do that. Yet again, we began looking at it legally by looking at the bylaws and the problems that we have with them. And we will look at that again in short order. So I hope, Joe, I address all the outstanding points and we can move on.
Okay, no, thank you very much, Alan. I think we need to, first of all, thank everybody for their wide-ranging contributions on this. I actually repeat, I'm delighted that you moved the amendments so that those people who have particular concerns on the freedom of speech, political parties, we're lucky to have UKIP, Conservatives, Labour, Independents represented here, who probably are even more interested in the political shenanigans involved in all this than anybody else out there who are wishing to use our markets. But on the other hand, that, with your amendment, which I seconded, can be addressed at length, taking all those considerations into point. I think the reality is, and the important thing about this is the whole basis for this is to help, assist, ensure the free prosperity of our markets, and the political free speech, which you painstakingly you are certainly looking to enhance, if anything, should be considered separately, and with your amendment, which I seconded, there is the opportunity for everybody to do that at length and come back on that point. But in the meantime, I again am very happy to second your recommendation as amended to allow all the points that have been made on the political free speech being to be looked at in depth, as well as the Amnesty International matters, the Human Rights Act, and all that sort of stuff that the ordinance raised. So perhaps we move to the vote as we said. Oh, I think one, Joy.
Sorry, just one small point, but just to make sure we have scooped up all the relevant bits that need to be looked at. I would suggest it should say, except the provisions and definitions being made for political parties and pressure groups as set out in section 4.4 and in 2D and Q, because that's where the definitions of political pressure groups and political parties is set out. So if we just, with the agreement of the move and second, where they could be included, that would be complete.
Thank you, Joy. Can I confirm, Aaron, that you are happy with those changes, which I think is doing the right way of reflecting the intention of our recommendations? Is that right?
Yeah.
And I'm more than happy to second that. I've got Dave, who's...
And just to confirm that the sort of minor changes that might result from my comments would be under the standard delegated thing which we've got for minor wording changes without changing the subject.
Well, I think, as I understand, that would be the clarification as there was nothing there, and I mean, I think obviously that goes with all things. If it's Joy, is that right, or do we have to do that in detail? So there's a standard delegated authority, which I'm sure we use to make exactly.
I think for the record, the first seconder was...
Oh, I beg your pardon. The seconder was analysed, so I'm quite rightly been put in my third place. I do apologise, I'm delighted you seconded it. So there we go. Thanks for all the contributions. All those in favour? Any against? Excellent. Thank you very much, and I wish all of those of you who are going to be involved in this paper coming back to us on the political life all the best to make sure we get the best possible freedom of speech and everything else.